All right. Now I need YouTube to see it. Hey, there we are. Good morning, good day, good evening to YouTube. All right, welcome. I believe is this the third or the fourth hybrid?
Fourth.
Fourth hybrid live coding interfaces online workshop. And once again, this year it's um, organized by my colleagues, Sophie Arduro, Melody Lovelace, and myself, Kate Sakio. We are all in Eastern Standard Time, but I know everyone out there is in all the time zones. So welcome, welcome. This year, our theme is um, boundless live coding. I don't know if Kofi or Melody, you wanted to say anything about the theme?
Yeah, since I'm unmuted. Yeah. So this came about because we always been thinking that when people think of live coding, sometimes they just think of algorithms, sometimes they think live coding is a genre. But the more you go to things like ICLC or you see actual people practices, we started realizing that live coding is not a genre, it is boundless. So, being this the hybrid live coding interface, we're like, what if we made a call out and put together what live coding could be, will be, has been, or even never be, and try to have those explorations, ideologies, and philosophies all merging together for this conference. And that's what you have. You have live coding as many different formats.
Great. Well, do you have anything to add, Melody?
Um, I guess something that I would also add is that it was also this year's theme is also kind of a response to all of the really interesting topics that have been emerging over the years. So when we were like contemplating comparing to last year's event that we also organized together, it was really focused on like dance or voice, um, things that are really resonate with us. But this one, again, it's just kind of like just kind of echoing what Kofi just said. It's more about investigating like this boundless nature because of like all these interesting other performances that happened at each ICLC, right? Like some pieces involving like theater and whatnot. So this is as much as us thinking about where could things go, but it's also like a response to all of your great work out there.
Great. So with that, let's get started. So up first, we have Code Drift from the streets to soundscapes. Um, and while they're coming on, just a little bit about the format. Everyone has 5 minutes to share, whether that's a talk or performance. And then at the end of the session, we'll have time for questions with everyone. So do submit questions via the YouTube chat. We'll be checking it. All right, so I'll let Code Drift take it away.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for having us here, you all. So we are Nanditi and Computational Mama from Ajaib Ghar, and Ajaib Ghar is a creative technology studio in India. We've been exploring this very new workshop format and creative coding format called Code Drift, which is based on the values of collaboration and community and um our love for bringing culture and tech together in our studio, in our other works as well, and also bringing the tangible and intangible together. So essentially, we are trying to bring aspects of the city exploration, code and music and art together for a beginner-friendly workshop format and performance format. So I'll just share my screen and we'll talk through what it's all about. Okay, so here we are. So it all started with a very ad hoc performance that I was called for, which was a theatrical production on the women folk musicians of Rajasthan. And it was very impromptu, and I was called in for the sound design for the theater production. And which basically led to discovering that live coding in sound design can easily translate to live coding soundscapes. So I'll just share a glimpse of what the theater production looked like, and then we'll move on to Code Drift.
Kamala Devi.
So this is what it was set up as, and this led to exploring some soundscapes artists, some pioneers in the field like Luke Ferrari, and current contemporary electronic artists like Fortet, who use a lot of biomusic and soundscapes in their production. And then, of course, we also present works of these people into our workshops as well. So this was the origin story, and then let's move on to how Code Drift came out of this exploration.
Code Drift became like a combination of both our strengths with Sonic Pi and P5JS through P5 Live. And I think Nanditi and I have a real rootedness in understanding and finding spaces for combining tech with our culture. So this kind of became a 4-day workshop, which is done in 2 parts. The first bit is we drift through the city, which is basically we've currently done it in 2 cities, Udaipur and Jaipur, which are in Rajasthan, as Nanditi mentioned, in the west of India. These are both fairly well known for their heritage, are very touristy, but also representative of what it means to be in a smaller town in India. The idea is to be able to explore the city as well as creative coding. Go down, yeah. The way we've planned it is that you go through the city, but also the space within which you have the workshop is specifically the furniture specifically laid out in a kind of non-structured way. We ensure that people come in from various cities across the country. Even if it's happening in the west of India, people are coming in all the way from the south. People are taking trains, buses, flights. So the idea is that a diverse bunch of people come together and they immerse themselves in this chosen city, and then they work with that idea both as a starting point for their coding, creative coding and live coding journeys.
Yeah, so the vibe is pretty informal, as you can see, and the venue and the city play a big part in the atmosphere that we want for the workshop. It's always a venue which is anyway a community space. The people who are running it, they are like-minded and they want to support creative formats and collaboration and friendliness. So it could be like co-working spaces or hostels or work cafes that do match the atmosphere that we're looking for Code Drift. And also a small city is important as a setting for a Code Drift to happen, because it is welcoming and it is easy to get around, and the whole being able to preserve the traditions as well as moving into modernity is done very well in a well-balanced form in the cities that we've been doing code drift in. And this very unhurriedness of living and creating is what we were looking for, which we do find in the smaller cities. So yeah, these are some snapshots of what it's like.
You can take this one, Nanditi.
Yeah, and so as we said, that collaboration is one of the main values. Collaboration and community are the main values behind the idea of code drift and creative coding that we want to put across. We always encourage a paired performance at the end. On the fourth day, it's an open jam where audio and video is like combined together, and 2 or more people are performing together. This really helps to bring about a collaborative spirit in your creative journeys, which is what we want to push forward. And there's no competition. We're all helping each other out, debugging together. And even if there are glitches or anything that goes wrong, we all embrace it and try to work with it and encourage each other through that. So in that way, we're also imbibing the philosophies of live coding that is totally judgment-free and it's totally improvised. So that's that. And these are some images of the jam day and performances. And we're trying different formats for even for the jam day. Sometimes it is an open house where we had about like 40-50 people come in, and it was audience facing, but still very informal. But at times it is also not audience facing. That's not the primary idea, but it's just everybody around a round table, and the projections are happening in different places, either on the ceiling, on the floor, or anywhere. Just explore different formats, which the jam itself becomes like a community thing, and you're all just passing the HDMI from one to the other on a table. So we're exploring all these different formats around that. We can share a few videos. This one's from the first one, which happened in Udaipur, and this is from second. So just some glimpses of the different settings we've been trying to explore. Yeah, and that brings us to finally some insights that we have gathered through a few experiences with CodeDrift. It definitely helped us to bring in culture and heritage into coding for beginners, especially to create a very exciting gateway and which is very accessible to them and it's easily understandable. And also bringing the tangible and intangible together, it removes the fear of it. And using the city for creative exploration has turned out to be effective for everybody. Ambika?
Yeah, I think we were also kind of looking at spaces of how live coding can be representative of our practices and how and this idea of what a live coding set could mean and sound like. And I think these explorations really given us an opportunity to push that idea forward. Like where can the images be from? What do they look like? What do they represent? What are these soundscapes all about? And what are these cityscapes about? And this format of using the city as an anchor to then kind of explore that idea has been really interesting. And also, what was really interesting is none of the workshops have had only beginners. Sometimes we've had people who are from more experienced coding backgrounds, sometimes much more than me and Nanditi know. So that's really been nice for them to be able to use their skill set to look at a creative exploration of what's possible within that idea. So I think, yeah, that's about it. I don't know, way ahead, Nanditi.
Yeah. So finally, like what we plan in the future for it is, of course, we want to do it in different cities. And we also want to explore cities beyond India. And another great idea that we were thinking of was like, we could do a traveling code drift that goes through multiple cities and people can just join and leave whenever they want or complete the whole circuit with us. So that would be quite interesting in terms of the diversity of culture that we can experience through creative coding in one city itself, in one country itself. It's quite possible. And of course, since it's a community-driven project, we would obviously try to do things to grow the community, for which we are wanting to create some collaterals and labs around the workshop period itself, where the beginners are in the workshop. There, we could have some labs for people who have already been a part of CodeDrift or who are already in other communities of creative coding, in which we are part of or we know of, or they are experienced creative coders and would want to come in. So this creates this sort of an osmosis of ideas between experienced creative coders and people who are just starting with CodeDrift. And of course, everything around the idea of city code and art is that has been working very well for us in CodeDrift. So yeah, that's about it. I think that's our time as well. And yeah, this is the thank you all for having us. And we are leaving a little QR code here if you all want to listen to some or see some CodeDrift sets that happened earlier. You all can scan this and it'll open a YouTube playlist if you want to have a look.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Yeah, I love this idea of not only it being like something you can do as like a methodology from city to city, but also bringing together advanced coders and beginner coders. Because I think that there's sometimes like a gap there in live coding. Like we have people who are very much starting and people who've been doing it for a long time. So this bridge is really nice. So yeah, we'll talk about this work more at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're going to have Eric set up, and this presentation is Live Coding Humans, which I love. Live Coding Humans, the making of a cyborg choir.
Okay, great. Can you hear me? Hi, just wanted to check, is my audio working? Are we...
All good, yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry. Hi, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks to Kate, Melody, and Kopi for having me. I wanted to share with you today a project that I've been working on, and that's been performed in public and still in development for future performances. It's called Human Machine Interface, and in it, I live code humans, that is, a human choir. So my name is Eric Lee, and my artist name is Easterner. I'm based in New York. I'm an active member of the LiveCode NYC community. I perform and curate and co-organize live coding and audiovisual shows. As part of my practice, I'm typically technology agnostic and experimental at heart. I like both old and new technologies, from vintage synths, CRT TVs, and 8-bit video game consoles to code-based music, XR, and AI-based tools. And I really like to glitch and circuit bend things and overall push technologies to do things they're not intended to do for poetic effect and or to critique or subvert their role in politics and society. So typically, in my live coding, I like to use p5.js, shaders, Touch Designer for visuals, and Orca for MIDI sequencing. Playing instruments that might be software instruments or built-in pure data, as well as playing outboard hardware synths and drum machines. So at some point, I wondered to myself, what if I could live code humans instead? How would I do that? What kind of emotional impact could such performances have? What are the artistic and poetic possibilities? So I was really imagining singers wearing VR headsets wired up to a central computer. And in their headsets, they would see a live scrolling score, and they would sing this live. So I'm unabashedly influenced by classic cyberpunk, like the anime film Ghost in the Shell, as well as other media works, thinkers and artists shown here. And so that informed a lot of the aesthetics and musical choices of the performance. And it also occurred to me that humans reacting live to a scrolling real-time score is also related to rhythm games. So the most famous example is probably going to be the floor pad dance-based rhythm game Dance Dance Revolution. So the first challenge was how to render MIDI in real time. One path that came to mind was to render scores in European classical musical notation, and 5 classical singers that have been trained to sight sing well. When I explored this, I found that there were no existing tools in the public domain that I could find, at least, for real-time generation of a scrolling score. So I'd have to build my own. And it could be interesting, I thought, for other live coders eventually, if I could make one, to use such a tool as well. I did find some interesting individual projects where people were doing something like this, but those tools weren't widely available. One was John Ecott from the UK, shown here on the left, 2 images, who converted tidal water data from the River Thames into musical scores in real time to be performed by a live orchestra, as well as US-based composer Jacob Chapinski, who had a project called Blind Ear, I think in the 2000s, which was very much like an extension of earlier generative music without computers, like Terry Riley's in C, where he provided 53 musical phrases that you can kind of see on the left, that musicians could choose to play from and repeat, and they would interlock and phase. So to make a scrolling score, I initially looked at VexFlow, an open source JavaScript library for rendering musical notation, European musical notation. But I ended up going with faster prototyping and more stylized scores in Touch Designer. So I first built a Touch Designer sketch to render 1 scrolling score from 1 channel of incoming MIDI notes. And then replicated this to render 4 separate channels of incoming MIDI, which would then go to the headsets of the 4 singers. And so in this upcoming video, you'll see 1 laptop on the left with Orca generating the live code music, and then the second laptop that receives the MIDI information into Touch Designer and renders this into 4 scrolling scores that then go to the 4 singers in one of the rehearsal sections. And so some final comments before I sort of show a little montage of the final performance. This was never intended to be just a technical demonstration, but I really wanted to do something that was more like performance art or even theater. So behind all of this was this sense of the broader anxiety that I think we're all feeling today about algorithms and how they're affecting our lives. So in this performance, we're live coding algorithms that tell the 4 singers what to do. This holds promise, I think, as a theatrical canvas for exploring the relationships between algorithms, the people that design and run them, and the people that are controlled and affected by them. So when you hear about Amazon workers whose workload is optimized so much that they did not have time for bathroom breaks, for instance, that's hitting the limit of the literal physical baseline needs of the human body. In this project, this is mirrored by writing algorithms that generate music that's at times so fast and intricate that it provides no space for breathing. And of course, breathing is a basic physical baseline need for human singers. An additional thing, in this performance, near the end, the singers are tired and they're barely able to keep up with the scrolling score. And they finally decide that they've had enough. They stop singing, they take off their headsets in an act of resistance. And so then there's a question, how can we structure relationships between humans, machines, and algorithms in a new, healthy way that does not exploit and oppress, but lifts and emancipates us? So I don't know what the answer to this is yet, but I believe it's valuable to open up the space in which to start imagining this. And so that's a big part of the motivation behind this project. So to close out, here's a short montage of the performance of this on May 27th of this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that was wonderful. I think we have time for maybe one or two questions. Melody, if you can give me a time check, that would be great. One thought I had watching this, because I work mostly with live coding humans,
Mhm.
was this idea of that you touched on at the end of sort of agency. And I wonder if this balance maybe can be found in, rather than like the performers feeling like they have to like interpret this, like do the score, there's room for interpretation. And I wonder like how that works into this piece in particular, this act of interpretation as the singer.
Yeah, totally. There's so many different ways to answer this question. So I think the one I want to choose this time is like, I think was the idea that I was kind of working at two levels. So one level was like I wanted, I think so on one level, I wanted to make sure that this was a very collaborative process with the singers, four singers, and one visualist involved. And so that was entirely like, far more than consensual. It was like enthusiastic collaboration, right? So they knew there would be ahead of time what they would be doing, that they would be pushing their bodies to the limits, right? So in that sense, they knew that this is what they were going to do. And then there was the sense of what are we trying to perform and convey to an audience that can be understood. So in that sense, it was a very collaborative process because together with the singers, we came up with the different types of creative singing styles, unusual like singing techniques. Like you heard some of the kind of droopy notes. There was a lot of like very nasal sounds, very strained sounds that were, after like consultation with them, things that wouldn't like hurt them, would be like doable and would be usable. Um, uh, as part of making the sound and the performance, and then at the same time for the performance, the I think the audience was kind of given this, I think had this impression, or maybe assumed that they would that the setup was basically the algorithms tell the singers what to do, and the singers then reproduce this faithfully. That's their job, and that's it. It's just a performance. But then there's this. I wanted it to be like, oh wait, it's not a black box. The performance itself is part of the performance, and that they don't have to do what they say. And so there's some break there that they that the audience may or may not expect. And I'm still trying to figure out what type of performance works well. What am I trying to say? What are we trying to say? Is it helpful to tell the audience what to expect beforehand, or to kind of have this be a shock to them? um, you know and I think this setup and live coding in general really allows you to do both. And I think the idea that you can choose is, I think, part of the exciting thing of this, is like as an art form.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Eric. Yeah, that was a brilliant presentation. And yeah, we'll have some more discussion at the end.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. And now we'll move on to our next presenter. So our next up, we have Code and Audio Dramas, a method for bimodal descriptions. Yeah, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, so hello, my name is Georgios Diapoulis. I recently finished my PhD here at Chalmers in Gothenburg, and I will be presenting you Code and Audio Dramas, a method for bimodal descriptions. Now, live coding has been described as the dramatization of a computer algorithm by Nick Collins. And audio dramas, as I use the term here, refer to the idea that we have a play without words. As a reference, I put Andrew Sachs, The Revenge. It's a radio show. It's available online, and there Andrew Sachs creates the play using only sound. So there is no speech or any other meaningful words in the play. That's the basic idea. And the aim is that I would like to use this technique, or to propose this technique, to produce rich descriptions between code and sound. So code is powerful in describing what is rendered, and this is a literal representation. And but many times, I mean, we are kind of surprised, but by how it sounds like, etc. So the idea is that to have both the code and the audio with rich descriptions on the audio, so that we can train large language models. And I will go to a live coding demo now, where it's like a soundscape moving between nature-like and synthetic sounds. And I use a voice, a synthesized voice, to narrate like the imageries of the listener. So I will elaborate at the end. But let's start with the demo.
Oh, what a beautiful bird song. It's somewhat more spacey. What is this noise? Strange bottle opening. Becoming unnatural, like flying paper metallic objects. Starts becoming non-natural birdsong. Kind of synthetic. Oh, what is this loud noise? Sounds strange and somewhat nicely synthetic.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, so the idea with the voice here is just to describe like the inner thoughts of a listener, and because of the presentation limitations with 5 minutes, I thought to put a voice on top. But the idea is that we do like a standard, like a typical live coding session where we write code and then we produce sound, and then on the sound we can go and have a description. So I would love to hear any thoughts or questions on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think my initial thought was like, yeah, it is like very theatrical. Like I think both the interplay of like the birds becoming spacey spatialized, and then also, you know, more and more, yeah, sort of synthesized, and then the voice layering on top of it, and like, yeah, that also doing the same thing. But the interplay of it did feel very like, yeah, there was this like dramatic tension, right, between these natural things versus the machine things, which I thought really did feel like, yeah, a drama. Yeah, it was really,
Yeah.
I think, well crafted in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure how much time we have, maybe 2 minutes, but yeah, I have in my mind like that, for instance, you can practice like long term and do that. And then when you go and listen after the practice, your live coding sessions and only the sound, then you can write like not a diary particular, but like a description of what you hear, if that's interpretable as a play. I mean, that I guess it can be done also on a musical live coding. If you're a musicologist, you can also kind of describe the moves there. So that's my interest there, to combine the rich descriptions on the sound with the code, and then train some large language models.
Great, fantastic. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm not sure if there is anything on the stream, but
I don't see anything on the stream.
Yeah.
But at the end, we'll do a larger question.
Okay, then maybe I leave you to continue.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
That was wonderful. Yeah, really well done. Yeah.
Thanks.
See. Up next, we have a performance by Carla Guzman. So immigration and fluorescent magenta eye matrices. And this is accompanied by Ocean and Mirella Kluba's sound. I've said that right. Apologies. All right, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and just share my screen and sound. Just bear with me. Yeah, so there's just me with the title, and what I'm doing is I'm gonna be using a Hydra visualizer, taking some visuals from my own art practice and some community musicians. I hope you enjoy the performance. I'll get right into it.
Teases, nothing can be missing, but safety comes and goes like breathing. Deceiving, catch myself, 'cause I know I'm not falling apart. Something else pulls me back to the days when I knew myself. Then it's good, then I'm running in green. But I think, how long adjust your senses and the weather gets better. Recognize the pattern. Ride your bike, it's coming back just like you knew would happen. Hey then, catch myself, cause I know I'm not falling apart. Something else pulls me back to the days when I knew myself. Then it's good, and I'm running in green. But I think, how long? Catch myself, cause I know I'm not falling apart. Something else pulls me back to the days when I knew myself. Then it's good, and I'm running in green. And I think, how long? Catch myself, cause I know I never thought I was falling. Something else pulls me back, but something takes me back to those days. I never thought I was falling, but I think, readjust yourself, readjust yourself.
Just one moment while I change the track. Okay. Hmm. All right, that concludes the performance part of my presentation. So over the last year or so, I've been doing this kind of interesting thing where I'm collaborating with musicians in the area, and I use my own art practice to include visuals. So basically, VJing for these artists, it becomes this live collaboration. The code is a bit minimal, mainly including images from my own fine art practice. And using the knowledge that I learned over time to really expand upon this idea. And here is my contact if you want to get in touch with me, and just a bit of my background as well. So the title, Immigration in Fluorescent Magenta, these are actual matrices for my own art practice. And the first track you heard was from Océane, and the second track was from Mireia Klua's music. You can find them on YouTube if you're interested.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hope you all enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think we might have like a 2-minute question. So my question is
Sure.
like, what in these when you're working with a musician, or when you're working with these tracks, what in it inspires you to like pull from your visual art? Like what kind of yeah, internal mappings are you?
Yeah, great question. And I'm glad you mentioned this because I was pretty intentional about choosing these two tracks. The first artist, I actually worked with her over the course of several months, and we created visuals for her music from start to finish. She essentially created an album, and I was alongside with her creating the visuals for her. And then we concluded it with a gallery exhibition as well as the live performance. It was really beautiful. And then Mireia Klua, the second track, I'm hoping to do the same next year. So I very much, my own art practice is very much abstract expressionism. I pull from emotions, so I try to just, vibe with whatever the mood of the music is, and the timing, the visuals, using Hydra, which is very like user friendly, in my opinion. So yeah, just kind of jamming in real time.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for performing and sharing. Yeah, it was really beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, you can
Thank
just you can tell you have a visual arts practice because it becomes so painterly. Yeah.
Yeah, painter, printmaker.
It's in there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so
fantastic.
much.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. And this brings us to our last individual presenter of the morning. So Leon, I believe you're here. So this presentation is called Inferno, a live coding odyssey through noise and narration. So if you're here and want to share.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
I can't share my video because the host is not allowing it, but I can try share my screen. Let's try that. Let's start. Yeah, can you see that?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Leon Forrest. I'm currently living in Barcelona, and I'm working as a programmer. And my free time, I dedicate myself to live coding since the beginning of the year. And when I found out about this workshop and I saw the topics, that was really interesting in the topic lie, because I was wondering how the connection between lie and coding could be made, or which topics are like kind of like intertwining with these two. So I was asking myself, what is the contemporary phenomenon of lie? And the first thing that came into my mind was the whole area of news and information, because I don't know how in the other participants' countries it's felt, but when I lived in Germany, there was a lot of movement that lost trust in the old types of information or news. So there's like obviously there's also around talking about like fake news, sensationalism, and misinformation. So that yeah, I connect that with the topic lie and what does mean are they connected? And this is basically how I arrived to this whole like news and information topic. But on top of um, this connection, I was also thinking about that, like we all, due to digital media and the digital age, that we are faced with an enormous challenge of processing all these new informations through digital, analog, social media, and if we actually are capable to check what kind of information and news we're consuming, and if these informations and are right, correct, or fake news. So I wanted to put myself into the situation, how it would feel to be like live coding this
Hey, Leon, I just have to
overwhelm.
interrupt you for 1 second because the audio is very glitchy. We're not hearing what you're saying.
Oh, okay. Um, sure, headset, maybe that's okay. Second. No. Oh no. Yeah.
It's still pretty echoey.
Hello. Now?
I think that, well, continue talking so we can hear if it.
Okay. I'll try. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
Okay, maybe it's the problem with sharing the screen, but let's give it another shot. So, yeah, to give it short, so what I wanted to do was connect the topic of use and being overwhelmed by the amount of data and news we are exposed to every day, and wanted to put myself into the situation where I have to live through that experience. So I decided to make a live coding session in V5 and Hydra, and can show you a little bit from it. So yeah, to go a little bit in the coding part of it, what we have is like a constant displacement via Hydra, which is in this modulated noise function, and the noise value has to get regulated by a MIDI knob. So I have to control with one hand basically the knob, keep the noise as at the value of 0 so something gets displaced. And what I do at the whole time is I try to get certain bits from the left side of the textures that get randomly picked every 8 to 20 frames, and try to get part of it to get some information out of the input of the information that I get. On the right, you can see again how the noise rate is generated. That's doing the displacement, and also the audio gets analyzed and scales the textures on the side. Yeah, that's it basically. Thank you for listening, and sorry for my difficulties.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very cool. Very cool work. Great. Yeah, great demo. At this point, I'm going to invite all of our session's presenters back. And we'll open it up for a more general discussion. So maybe actually one sort of big broader question I had after watching everyone's was the relationship between in a performance between a live coder and a non-live coder, or maybe even not, like maybe it isn't even like, when I say non-live coder as a performer, maybe it's not even like a human performer, maybe it's a location or something else. Because I think all of these sort of spoke to that idea in a different way, right? Like this idea, like someone is the live coder, and then there's this other thing that they're sort of dealing with within the work. So yeah, I guess that's my question. What's the relationship between the live coder and the non-live coder within what you've been discussing this morning? I don't know if anyone wants to go first.
I could
I
give a quick
you
one.
can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Yeah, in my mind, I guess I was explicitly, about live coding humans. And as I mentioned, like the kind of configuration of the setup itself was a kind of a canvas. So the initial starting point was me as live coder writing an algorithm that controls 4 other humans. But then part of opening a space for, well, what could other configurations look like? One that kind of came to mind for future performances was after the kind of resistance where they say, no, we don't want to do this anymore, is to change around where we would swap places, for instance. That's sort of a very sort of straightforward one where someone else would come up, start live coding, and I would put on the headset and start singing. But then yet other things to think about were like, well, there's so many possibilities with this setup. Like, well, maybe it's not as simple as that. Maybe everyone is a live coder and also singing. Or maybe, when someone starts flagging, can they redistribute their note workload to someone else? I mean, there are lots of just things that open up these kind of political questions. So that was one talk from what related to my project.
I just wanted to say, just as a former non-coder, I really appreciate these like friendlier softwares for us that are really like interested in tech, but haven't quite hit that like learning curve. And I think it gives a lot of like good insight for like the people that I've collaborated with. I have like enough understanding to kind of just be like, hey, this is like what this does. Let's do something together. It definitely, although I'm coding, at the end of the day, it does require like human interaction. I have to make sure like, we can communicate what is our goal at the end of the collaboration, and that we're vibing. Like I like the music, they like my visuals. So in the end it becomes this like very beautiful thing.
So, in terms of the city, because for us, we are looking at the live coder as the human and the machine, and the city as the non-live coder part. It really it feeds in as the creative material that you work with. So we're really using aspects of the city, whether it's the sounds that we are hearing and recording, or whether it's the sights we are seeing as photographs or videos, or just your experience of the city, like the coder's experience of the city translating into, bringing what's going on in their mind to the performance, so everyone can look at through their practice of live coding. So it's not actually what they have seen and recorded. It's like a changed version of their experience through live coding.
So I guess in my project, I'm the live coder who is suffering this, or exhibits himself towards this overwhelming situation, and the non-live coder can analyze and see and maybe learn from is how live coding can help or even not help with handling these situations.
All right, we do have a question from our audience out in the internet. So this is from Katrina Hogar. It says, it was specifically for Natui, but I think anyone can address this as well. How are you influencing participants to live code versus other intersections between creative coding or other coding and the event's goals? So I guess why live coding and not dead coding or non-live coding?
Nanditi, you should answer this. I don't know. I think we've also done non-live coding workshops. I mean, in creative coding formats, but I think there is something very exciting about like putting yourself in a space of not just a tech person who can use code as a medium, but also like doing it live, like that performative aspect of it really encourages people in a very different way. For example, like rather than just saying, hey, I made the sketch and sharing it, but like, coming together as a group and doing it together and seeing that entire process and like allowing that the faults and the gaps and the glitches that really helps people. And I think we really play with this idea of what it means to like build an image of two people doing things together and failing and fooling and goofing and feeling excited about it, and may not necessarily be from a technical background. What does that mean? And I think there's no better way to do it than live coding. And I feel like the community, all of you have really helped us to like build it in that way. Like it's fine, you come to the gig and it's okay to like falter. So that really makes a difference in terms of encouraging, especially the non-coders, to kind of get into the groove of making with code.
Does anyone else want to address that? Why live coding and not another creative coding practice?
Yeah, I guess, can I?
Yeah.
I'll try to combine both your question and this maybe. So for me, I guess a human is kind of necessary, but I mean, I'm thinking of like live coding as a state of mind. So I guess you have to change to change or to have like a non-humanitarian worldview to see live coding for non-humans, which is it's an interesting approach. I mean, if if the Earth can live code, I don't know, uh, but then again, I think my position there is that maybe we attribute that to the Earth, or just it's maybe hard to know. And yeah, so I guess in the core of my kind of thinking now is this live coding as a state of mind. It answers both kind of why we develop interfaces on the fly and we modify them, etc., rather than using let's say dead coding or kind of rigid interface, etc. That's I think my view there.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, we have a couple other questions from YouTube. So another one from Katerina. For those who made their own interfaces or special programs, what was the most challenging aspect of the process? And how did other subjects influence the way you solved your projects?
I could, yeah, one part of the challenge, technical challenge for the project was of the human machine interface project was to render MIDI, like a stream of MIDI information and notes into a real-time score that could be sight read. So there were like two big things. One was actually it was supposed to be human centered, and so there was kind of a feedback of trying a way of making a scrolling score, but then you're like, well, how fast should it scroll? How by necessity, it's got to be lagged a little bit because you kind of got to generate maybe one measure or two measures of MIDI notes before it's supposed to be sight sung. And so then how does that go? Should it scroll? Should it actually appear on screen and kind of slowly like move up the page or move down the page? Those were, it was through actually trial and error with specific singers. But then at the same time, of course, they got whatever it was, there was a path dependency because they started getting better at whatever it happened to be. And then, they started getting familiar with it. So I don't know, with a new set of singers, with other performers, I actually also tried it with the string quartet. There were kind of different ways that different people, unsurprisingly, respond differently to different kinds of notation. So I think that was where it's like, yeah, humans are messy, and that's part of the great thing about all of this. And trying to put humans in standardized units sometimes is what leads to inhumane things. The second more trivial one was that it's surprisingly difficult to send lots of HDMI out of one GPU. I hit a kind of initial ceiling at like 4. It was actually quite a bit harder to start sending out more. And then it's like, okay, you actually need to think about a different way of delivering a lot of scores to a lot of things, which is why something more scalable would probably be, I'd have to do a bit of a redesign.
Thank you. Anyone else want to talk about their systems and any difficulties and how they overcame them? I mean, Leon, your system is kind of about difficulty.
System to be as difficult as possible, no? But then on the other hand, it also can't be too difficult because otherwise the visual wouldn't be visible anymore, or it just would be distorted and you wouldn't understand the concept anymore. So you have to obviously find a balance between yeah, what was interesting for me was I wanted to get as many inputs that are possibly noise, random, audio, visual, but also it has to be limited, but not too limited, obviously. So there's, yeah. And what I also wanted to say to the practice of live coding, what I really like is that first of all, I like the performance part of it. So while you do the live coding, you have to sort your own idea how you're going to continue with the next step. So you have or for me, I often have a lot of ideas and I want to go there, I want to go there, I want to go there, but at the end, I just can go one way. So every time it's kind of different. And more like educational wise, when I see other people perform and I understand the language, is super interesting how they write their code and how they express themselves with certain code, which maybe they couldn't with just, I don't know, poems or writing or anything. So I think it has a lot of specific features that for certain people give just a really good option to express themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. We have one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. And then it says, for people who have never performed in any way before, what do you think live coding allows that maybe other performing arts do not?
Yeah, I guess we could take that because that's what we're dealing with. So in our experience with CodeDrift, basically, the idea of live coding gives this comfort to first-time performers that it is improvised making, and glitches and mistakes are a part of it. So we always keep telling them mistakes are not mistakes, they are just surprises in your performance. So just move with it. Whatever has happened, how can you use that and then, take the next step in the set? So it's really comforting that way and creates this whole open, judgment free space, because everyone is live coding and everyone is dealing with glitches, and nobody really comes fully prepared for it. Like, you're half prepared. So it takes off the pressure, from compare it to other performing arts, that pristine output is not what we're looking for. It's more about playfulness.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of that. I think in the arts, that's like even my own art practice, like your mistakes, you can kind of thrive off of them. So in a similar fashion, when you're making these mistakes in your code, like I remember in my first performance, I froze up for like the first like 4 minutes. But you just get into it, and like once you're in it, you find a flow. So it's just very like especially if you have like an audience, like kind of react to the audience as well, react to the musician in this in my case. So it just becomes this like very like collaborative experience in the end, mistakes and all.
Great. Anyone else before we close off? Go for it.
I'll add one. Yeah, I think in at least for live coding music, one thing that the singers that I collaborated in the project kind of reflected back to me when I kind of explained what I was trying to do with the live coding was like, oh, you're kind of like conducting and composing and improvising at the same time. And I thought that was an interesting way to put it, because you are trying to look at this at the very high level and be like, okay, actually increase the energy here more broadly, right? But then at the same time, you might also be like, yes, but also make arpeggios that are like a C major 7 chord, or add more sort of drum beats here. So there's sort of this there's a lot of things you're doing at many different levels, but it can go to quite a high level. And then the other one is, I started out when I started out making music, I learned to play the piano, the keyboard, and sitting at the white and the black keys at the keyboard, tuned to Western European scale, it's creates a certain bias, and of course it's a restriction that can create many beautiful things. It was really nice to stop looking at that for a while and just looking at a different kind of keyboard, I guess a computer keyboard, and to make music without that. And I started making music that was different from that. And of course, you can then obviously go into other tunings from around the world, or other kind of just numerical microtonal stuff as well. But it was really nice to move away from those biases, Eurocentric otherwise. And then when I went back to the piano again, I also brought some of that with me, and I was like, okay, I'm playing things that I wasn't playing before. So it's I enjoy it for all of those reasons.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have any final comments? Great. In that case, we're going to conclude this morning's session, or this first session, I should say. We're not all in the morning. Thank you so much to our presenters. It was, beautiful projects, beautiful work. Really excited to see where all of this goes. Hopefully our next session, which starts at 10:30, will be on the correct YouTube link. This one was not. I had to quickly switch a bunch of stuff. So hopefully we'll see you on the next link in about 10 minutes-ish. Thank you, everyone, again. Really lovely.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.